Hello and welcome to this video. We will be going over the history of the ModernApps Ninja program. So the ModernApps Ninja originally started as PKS Ninja. PKS was VMware's initial Kubernetes offering, and it's grown and matured and added a lot of new capabilities, and today it's now the product known as Tanzu Kubernetes Grid Integrated Edition. Originally when we launched it, it was PKS, and so our original program was called PKS Ninja Labs, or PKS Ninja, and PKS Ninja was originally in VMware kind of this twofold program where on one hand PKS Ninja was the name of an internal training program we had for specialist systems engineers, and at the same time we created this GitHub location repository, and we hosted all the lab guides initially that we used for our internal training for our specialist engineers. And this side of the program has really been, it's actually always been publicly posted, and really kind of grew a very separate life from the internal training program, where we've really focused on having an open learning community, and have had lots of participation from lots of, predominantly internally within VMware. It has been somewhat open, but it was very much internally focused at the time, but very focused on not just one learning program, but on knowledge sharing, on a community coming working together, lots of different people in the community that shared their knowledge by putting content, creating lab guides, helping to keep lab guides updated when we had new software revisions, and so on. And so the original structure here, you can see it's all GitHub based. We didn't have a learning management system or courseware. It was really, we had courses, which at the time were, if you have courses general technical courses include usually multiple lab exercise sections, and they go in a particular order. And so in this context, the course was essentially the order that you would go through lab guides, and then we have a large number of lab guides. And these lab guides are still very relevant if you're using TKGI. In some cases, they're more focused on Kubernetes itself than say they are on PKS. And so the content can still be very useful. In the case of TKGI, while it has a lot of new features and capabilities, a lot of the features that have been there for a while, there's still you still execute the tasks in the same way. And so if there's a particular lab guide that you see here, you can't find a different one, there's a very good chance that if you go through these lab guides with a newer version of TKGI, the steps are still going to be essentially identical. And so hopefully these can still be a very valuable reference for you if you'd like to come check out this site. And I think it highlights one of the directions where we go with the community. While the learning management system is a huge asset, and it should also not serve as a distraction to how you want to share knowledge. We're still very GitHub centered. We do have now a new ModernApps Ninja GitHub organization, which also has a number of lab guides. And so while the course is a nice new addition, if you're interested in sharing content, or as we create content, our content a lot of times revolves around lab guides on GitHub, and likewise. Of course, you don't need to create a course. We may not always create courses. In many cases, we try to get out as much content as possible, and if a lab guide fits the bill for what we want to accomplish for a particular topic, we will still continue to have lab guides here that may not have an associated course. And likewise for members of the community, you may want to share information about a technical exercise that you've gone through. You may not have the interest in creating the whole course for that, and that's definitely still a very big aspect of the program. One of the really crucial aspects of the program for me was that these lab guides are in Git itself, and that has a lot of value for a lot of different reasons. On one hand, Git and GitHub, you can see so many open source projects are hosted on GitHub, and it's really been a fundamental enabler of how open source has come to really be what it is, where open source is what it is because it has allowed such large communities, really anyone can come, and Git has integrated Git has built into it, really effective methods that allow large numbers of people, whether it's your own project team on a private project or whether it's anybody in the world where, who can come to GitHub and make effective contributions. And so anyone can come here, create edits, and once we've created an edit, it has integrated workflows to submit edits to approvers. And then from like my perspective as an approver, if someone submits an edit to one of these documents, and I can look at it, say, oh yes, that's good, and click approve, and this immediately updates everything. And it's just a really powerful way of bringing a community together to effectively work together on shared community content. And Git's also just really becoming much more important. It's always been important in certain areas of IT, but it's becoming really important to I think most of IT at this point in time. Even if you're not using it in your current role today, I think from the developer side, it's something that's much more well known and it's been used a lot longer. And but from the infrastructure side, there's not nearly as many people using Git as a way to manage the infrastructure. But if you've worked in infrastructure, no doubt you've heard of infrastructure as code. You've heard of things like moving from pets to cattle. You've heard a lot about topics about becoming more cloud-like and how you operate and automating processes. And you most likely, either yourself or see with your peers in infrastructure automation that there are a lot of scripts in use, from Bash and PowerShell scripts to having seen over the past few years the large growth of scripting languages like with Puppet and Chef and so on. Scripting is increasingly trying to find ways to automate processes and workflows is very important. And if you have any type of script at all, understanding Git is really kind of critical to evolving your infrastructure operations towards that cloud-like. You want to move towards being more agile. You want to move towards automating more processes. Using systems like Git can really supercharge how you manage scripts and how you manage process automations and workflows. But at the same time, one of the big reasons why we've done it the way that we have with lab guides is so many of the courses out there on Git are very developer focused, and they include they teach Git in the context of very code-centric exercises. And if you're coming from a background as not being a developer, you go in and you're trying to learn how to interact with Git, and it's in the context of examples that you don't understand, it can become very confusing. At the same time, Git is also like learning Git is a lot like learning how to ride a bicycle, right? And you don't learn how to ride a bicycle by taking a course on the theory of bicycle riding, right? You learn it through practice. And it's a very crawl, walk, run experience. And the same thing is exactly true of Git. In most Git courses, they're going to teach you all about how Git works, which is important, right? It's important to learn all about how Git works and so on. But for any role, anybody, nobody's going to go from a role where they don't use Git to a role where they have to be the master of Git, right? That's just not a realistic thing. As you start to work with Git, you're going to start to work with it in an incremental fashion. And the first role that anybody has when they start to work around projects that involve Git is basic things like learning how to check in your documents, right? And then little by little learning how to do more progressive, cool things that Git is it's a powerful tool set, and over time as you use it more and more, you learn how to use more and more of the more powerful aspects of Git. And so in the context of hosting our lab guides here, it becomes really very clear if I want to come in here and I want to make an update to something, maybe reword this paragraph, change punctuation. Oh, there's a misspelling perhaps, right? I can fix that misspelling. In that context, there's no confusion about the example. And so when you learn how to make an update to something, it really helps you distill in your mind what exactly is that really core process of working with Git. How do I make something and then check it into a Git repository? How do I take something that's in a Git repository and make an update to it? And it can those are things that if you do them repetitively and you start off and take this crawl, walk, run approach of how we have currently and in the past and will in the future really integrate it in stepwise fashion throughout the Modern Apps Ninja curriculum, it really helps to teach effective Git, regardless of where you're coming from, without trying to boil the ocean. As you see, frankly, I think in a lot of courses on Git out there, it really helps to learn the practice of Git. And so that was a very big focus of our original program. And again, it really allowed us to receive, we've received thousands of lines of contribution from the community. We've had a huge number of people that through this community program came and did their first Git commits, and some that have gone on to contribute to big open source projects. And at the same time, you're building out this really important aspect of, I think, the modern IT resume of having every time you make a commit on Git, it saves that information on your Git profile, and so you can come through, and as you work through exercises in the program, your Git profile will start to get get filled up with updates and commits and things that you've done to interact through and contribute through the exercises in the program. And so that's the past of our program, and I think it helps to reflect on some of the aspects of the program that you may not see as you start to go through courses with the new learning management system. But increasingly, as we put more content out there, and as you go through more courses, you'll see elements of Git and GitHub and GitLab guides, and contributing and participating in the GitHub side of the community as we get more content built out. So thank you again for joining this video, and I'll see you in the next video.